Well, as both Chair and Executive Officer reiterated, we're really here today to listen, not to lecture, but we wanted to talk just a little bit about the three distinct parts of the process: the development of the Delta Plan, the environmental impact report and review, and the rulemaking package. And I expect we'll go through this really quickly if I can touch these buttons.
Okay, we're asking for technical help to post on the simulcast screen. There we are.
Somebody's
slide you're referring to.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. So just a brief overview. We are here because of the 2009 Delta Reform Act. It was landmark changes to California's water management, looking at pulling many disparate pieces together, established the co-equal goals of putting protection of the ecosystem on an equal footing with water supplies, with a very important caveat that both of those goals are accomplished in a manner that preserves and protects the unique characteristics of the Delta. It required reduced reliance on the Delta for future water supplies, and that's been a subject of discussion ever since. It included bills on statewide water conservation, groundwater monitoring, water rights enforcement, a bond to help pay for it all. It was, in fact, a comprehensive package. But it also then created, among other things, a 7-member independent council, the Delta Stewardship Council, with the authority to achieve the co-equal authority and the mandate to achieve the co-equal goals. So the council started with the intention that when completed, the Delta Plan and its regulations will create a single blueprint for local agency action to provide a more reliable water supply for California, to restore the Delta ecosystem, and to do so in a manner that preserves the unique characteristics of the Delta. The Council's Delta Plan is intended to create new rules for significant state and local agency actions that occur in whole or in part in the Delta, with the Council as an appellate body to enforce those rules in a fair manner. The plan is also intended to create a unified science initiative and improved accountability to achieve those co-equal goals, and to create an effective interagency coordination body to implement the Delta Plan. So, as a refresher in the process, we have been through, from February 2011 until August of that year, 5 different staff drafts, each building on the other, each receiving a lot of comment and question. Based on that 5th staff draft, November of 2011, we released the first programmatic environmental impact report. That was out for a lengthier review that spread into early 2012. Through all of that, through comments on the draft plan, on the EIR, we heard from more than 250 different organizations and individuals. More than 10,000 different comments were submitted. All of them read, considered, and played a role in the development of subsequent drafts of the Delta Plan. The final staff draft in May of last year, 2012. The Council made several changes to that through June and from June until an August meeting, and then we pulled that draft together. It was released on November 30th, along with a supplemental programmatic EIR, a recirculated supplemental, and the rulemaking package that will turn the policies of the Delta Plan into state regulations. So what are we trying to do? We were building on earlier efforts, including CalFed and Delta Vision. This was a foundational, but it built on earlier efforts. It tried to take a common sense approach that was based on best available science. And really what it tried to do was knit together many of the projects and programs that are going on at other agencies, pulling those into a comprehensive whole, the Delta Plan, that can meet the co-equal goals. When it comes to water supply reliability, we look at achieving reduced reliance on the Delta watershed by investing in improved local and regional supplies, conservation, water use efficiency, and improving delta conveyance and the expansion of groundwater and surface storage. When we look at ecosystem restoration in the delta, rather than reiterate many of the efforts that are already ongoing and will be coming into place in the near term, we looked at preserving and protecting the best opportunities for habitat restoration. There are 6 areas identified in the Delta Plan, and it says that if you are going to change land use in any of those 6 areas, you need to consult with the Department of Fish and Wildlife to discuss the potential for lost habitat mitigation. We protect those 6 high-priority areas. We also make recommendations to reduce ecosystem stressors, because as we all know that there are many different issues that are leading to the decline of the delta ecosystem, and we can't just address one to the exclusion of all the others. So we need to address all of them. One of the key elements that we didn't want to duplicate was work on developing the best method of conveyance through the delta and ecosystem restoration. A lot of that is ongoing work that is being extensively studied through the Bay Delta Conservation Plan. The law in 2009 required that that plan, when approved, becomes a part of the Delta Plan without comment. But this is, it's a lightning rod for a lot of people, but probably the key to understand here is that BDCP, the Bay Delta Conservation Plan, becomes a part of the Delta Plan only when it has been certified as an NCCP, a Natural Communities Conservation Plan, by the State Department of Fish and Game. It faces many other hurdles. It has to meet the water quality plan of the State Water Resources Control Board. It has to consider those flow requirements. It has to go through a series of discussions with NOAA and Fish and Wildlife Service on the federal side to make sure that it's meeting their objectives. It has to go through 404 and 401 permitting processes through the Army Corps of Engineers. It has to meet all of the litmus test that is set forth in the Delta Reform Act. There are many hurdles, and should the Bay Delta Conservation Plan surmount all of those, by the time it is done with that regulatory gauntlet, it should be a very good conservation plan and should fit well within the Delta Plan. So that's why we say complete, but successfully complete, the Bay Delta Conservation Plan. All of this needs to be achieved in a manner that protects and enhances the unique and evolving characteristics of the Delta. We took many of the recommendations from the Delta Protection Commission that were incorporated here, locating new urban development in already urban and urbanizing areas, protecting rural lands for agriculture, designating the Delta as a natural heritage area, and protecting historic communities. The Delta itself, recognized by the legislature and others, is inherently flood prone, so we call for creating the Delta Flood Risk Management District, looking at a way to unify all of the reclamation districts that manage many of the Delta levees. We look at reduced exposure to risk by enhancing floodplains, creating setback levees, and then also required by the Delta Reform Act is that we set state priorities for investment in Delta flood protection 2 years from now. That is the Delta Plan. So this recirculated environmental impact report, the one that was out in 2011, evaluated the 5th staff draft. There were several changes to that draft that are out now. And so the recirculated draft program, EIR, that we're here to take comment on today, evaluates the final staff draft Delta Plan. That was released on November 30th, and it is considered the revised proposed project in CEQA world. What really changed? We expanded the discussion and background and need for several proposed policies and recommendations, in particular water supply, WRP water reliability, WRP1, more clearly defining the goal for water management plans for agencies that benefit from a covered action, as well as making recommendations that encourage Delta watershed agencies to develop and implement water and groundwater management plans, but backing off from recommendations on additional water supply development for them, although we still suggest that that is a good idea. We included additional performance measures to assist in the implementation of policies, and we also, this time around, identified issues for future evaluation and coordination. And then lastly, the finding of that volume is that the revised project compared to the original proposed project and all the others is that it is more effective than the proposed project at reversing or arresting the decline in Delta water supply reliability, and would do more to reduce environmental impacts caused by an uncertain water supply. And then lastly, we include today in the overview the regulatory and rulemaking process, and that's where I turn it over to Dan.